Have you ever stopped to think about the invisible forces shaping our modern world?
You mean things like how we pay for stuff?
Yeah, exactly. Or how our devices work, even how we connect with each other online.
It's fascinating, isn't it? How these separate things are actually becoming really interconnected.
Hmm. Sometimes in ways we don't even fully realize.
Definitely.
And that's pretty much what we're diving into today. This deep dive looks at, well, several of these connected aspects of our digital lives.
And we're drawing on that great collection of sources you shared.
Yeah, your selection gives a really broad view, touches on some fundamental shifts happening right now.
It really does. I mean, your articles hit everything from digital currencies
And virtual assistants.
to how tech affects our well-being, and even the science behind something like electricity, which we just take for granted.
Right. It shows how deeply embedded technology is in our lives, often just humming away in the background.
So our mission then is to pull out the key insights from all these different areas.
Connect some surprising dots, maybe.
Yeah, and give you, the listener, a clearer picture, a more nuanced understanding, hopefully without just drowning you in information.
Okay, sounds like a plan. Where should we start?
Well, let's kick off with something that, makes the world go round, but doesn't really exist physically. Any guesses?
Based on your sources, that sounds like the riddle about money. Specifically, cryptocurrency.
You got it. Seems like the perfect place to start with this idea of the intangible shaping our reality.
So one of your sources, I think it was from English Voice Club, dives right into this.
It does. It starts with cryptocurrency, explaining that currency is just, well, the money used in a country at a specific time.
Okay, simple enough.
But the crypto part, that comes from cryptic, suggesting something hidden or secret.
And the big example everyone knows is Bitcoin.
Right. Bitcoin's the most popular one.
It's still kind of mind-bending how something so abstract holds real value,
It is. And you might be wondering, Bitcoin, when did that even start?
Yeah, well, that source had a quiz question on exactly that. When was Bitcoin first created? Options were 2004, 2009, 2013.
It feels recent, but not that recent. I'd probably guess 2009.
You'd be right. 2009 it is.
Yeah.
So what's the big difference between Bitcoin and, say, the notes in my wallet?
Well, the fundamental thing is it's not printed by governments or central banks.
Oh, so it's not legal tender.
Exactly. That's the official stuff a country says you have to accept for debts, like taxes. You can't just pay your tax bill with Bitcoin yet.
Not easily, anyway.
And that lack of a central authority, that's key to Bitcoin. It's part of the appeal for some.
And why others are wary, I imagine.
Precisely. And it mostly exists online, right? No physical coins.
No digital jingling sounds.
Yeah.
So, okay, if no one prints it, where do new Bitcoins come from? Is it just magic?
Not quite magic. That brings us to how it's actually generated and verified.
Right. The source mentioned two main ways. You can trade for it.
Or you can mine it.
Mining. And not with picks and shovels, I assume.
Definitely not. It involves computers doing really complex calculations.
What are they calculating?
They're basically verifying other Bitcoin transactions happening on the network.
Okay, like digital bookkeeping.
Kind of, yeah. And as a reward for doing that computational work, for helping secure the network...
You get new Bitcoins?
Exactly. That's the incentive. It's crucial for keeping the whole system running securely.
Makes sense. And its value has shot up, which is obviously grabbed headlines.
So much so that a Chicago stock exchange started trading Bitcoin futures contracts.
Futures contracts. That's like betting on the future price, right?
Essentially, yes. A contract to buy or sell at a specific price later on. Investors were clearly betting its value would keep climbing, even if maybe not as crazily fast as it did initially.
But here's the twist.
Yes. Despite all that investor excitement.
The big established banks were still pretty skeptical about its reliability, weren't they?
Very much so. That contrast really highlights the ongoing debate, the uncertainty about where cryptocurrencies fit in the bigger financial picture.
It really does. It feels like watching financial evolution happen right in front of us. Okay, let's switch gears a bit.
From digital money to digital voices.
Yeah, let's talk about those virtual assistants living in our phones and speakers.
Like Siri, Alexa, Google Assistant.
Cortana, yeah. It sort of mirrors that shift from physical cash to intangible money, doesn't it? Our interactions with tech are becoming less physical, more conversational.
That's a great point. And your sources dug into these bots, too.
They did. And speaking of history, here's another quiz from the sources. When was the first computer that could recognize speech launched? 1951, 1961, or 1971?
Wow. Recognize speech. That feels early. Maybe 61?
Spot on again, 1961. It was the IBM shoebox.
The shoebox, seriously.
Yep, and it could recognize, get this, 16 words and the digits 0 to 9. Impressive for the time.
Definitely. Now, one of your sources mentions Tom Hewitson, a conversation designer.
Right. He had an interesting take on our relationship with computers.
He argues we've mostly seen them as tools, right? Like fancy calculators.
Oh, that's changing.
He thinks so. He suggests they're moving towards becoming agents.
Agents. Not like secret agents, I hope.
No, he means agents with agency.
Agency.
Yeah.
The ability to act on their own, make decisions.
Within limits, yes. Acting more independently, proactively, maybe? It makes you think about what our devices might start doing for us automatically.
Yeah, how much autonomy do we actually want them to have? That's a big question.
It is. But Hewitson also mentioned something else interesting, how we talk to them.
Oh, right. Developing a different way of speaking.
Right.
A machine vernacular.
Exactly. Vernacular just means the language used by a particular group. He suggests we'll probably need less chit-chat.
Chit-chat, like small talk. How's the weather, Alexa?
Yeah, that kind of stuff. We might become more brusque.
Brusque. So more direct. Abrupt, even.
Possibly. More focused on just getting the task done, because you don't need to build social rapport with a machine.
That makes sense. Why waste time on pleasantries if it doesn't care?
Okay, so from virtual assistants, let's look at the foundation they run on the web itself. We use it constantly, but yeah, do we really think about the science behind it? Or the societal side?
Well, one of your sources introduced web science.
Which is exactly that, studying the tech and the human interaction online.
And, you guessed it, another quiz. Who invented the World Wide Web? Bill Gates, Tim Berners-Lee, or Steve Jobs?
This one feels more familiar. Gates and Jobs were huge, obviously, but the web itself, that was Tim Berners-Lee, wasn't it?
Correct. You're nailing these. Now, Dame Wendy Hall, who co-founded Web Science, she has this really insightful view.
That's that.
She says the web isn't just tech infrastructure. It's co-created by society.
Co-created, meaning?
Meaning we, the users, create the content, we use the platforms, we interact. It all forms an ecosystem.
An ecosystem. That's a good word. It suggests it's complex, interconnected.
Exactly. She emphasizes it's interdisciplinary, drawing from computer science, sociology, psychology, economics.
And socio-technical. Tech and society shaping each other.
Right. And increasingly, AI is powering this whole ecosystem.
Okay, so how does that play out in the real world?
Well, a really timely example the source mentioned was COVID contact tracing apps.
Yes. Using web tech for public health.
Public health being, protecting the health of the population overall. But Carly Kine from the Ada Lovelace Institute raised some serious questions.
About whether they actually worked as intended.
Pretty much. She pointed out basic issues like whether Bluetooth is even reliable enough for accurately detecting close contacts.
Right, because walls and even just how you hold your phone can affect Bluetooth signals.
Exactly. And early trials suggested maybe it didn't always do what it says on the tin.
An idiom meaning it doesn't perform as advertised.
Yep. So the question remains, did those apps reliably give us the public health info we needed?
It's a good reminder that just because we can build a technology doesn't mean it's automatically the perfect solution. It needs proper testing.
Absolutely critical. Okay, let's shift perspective again, maybe get a bit more critical. Have you heard the term techno-chauvinism?
Techno-chauvinism. Based on chauvinist, it sounds like. An excessive belief in technology.
That's basically it. Like a regular chauvinist believes their group is superior, a techno-chauvinist thinks tech is always the best solution.
Okay, I can see how that could be a problem.
One of your sources dives into this, and it connects to our next quiz break. In what decade was the term artificial intelligence first coined? 1940s, 1950s, or 1960s?
AI. Early computing, cybernetics. I'll go with the 1950s.
And you are on fire. The 1950s it is. Now, Meredith Broussard at NYU defines techno-chauvinism exactly as that belief tech is always the highest, best solution.
And what's the flaw in that thinking, according to her?
She argues we tend to assume computers are inherently objective.
Objective meaning unbiased, purely factual.
Right. But she says that's a misconception. Computers aren't objective on their own.
Why not?
Because they're proxies for their creators.
Proxies, like stand-ins, acting on behalf of the programmer.
Exactly. So any intelligence, and crucially any biases in the system, really come from the humans who built it.
So human biases can get baked right into the technology.
That's the danger. Broussard warns that relying too heavily on AI can actually make existing social problems worse.
Like racism or sexism.
Yes. Exactly. Those kinds of nuanced problems.
Yeah.
Complex issues with deep roots. She argues there's no perfectly unbiased data to train AI on.
So the AI can end up reflecting or even amplifying those existing societal biases.
Precisely. And the people creating the algorithms, the instructions the computers follow, might not always be fully aware of these complex social dynamics.
That raises huge ethical questions about building and using AI responsibly.
It really does. Okay, let's bring it closer to home. The device most of us have glued to our hands.
Yeah.
The smartphone.
Right. Revolutionized everything, but not without consequences.
Definitely. Your sources touched on things like FOMO,
Fear of missing out.
ignoring people in front of you for your phone. Right?
Yep. And one survey found half of U.S. teens feel addicted to their phones.
Addicted. Like a compulsion, can't stop using it. Yeah, a strong urge that's hard to control. That sound familiar?
I think many of us can relate to feeling that pull, unfortunately.
Well, psychologist Jean Twenge suggests there might be a link between smartphones becoming common and rising mental health issues in teens.
What's the proposed connection?
She highlights the risk of just losing track of time, endlessly scrolling compulsively, checking notifications.
Compulsively meaning uncontrollably.
Yes, just doing it without really thinking over and over.
It definitely requires more self-awareness to manage that kind of engagement.
For sure. Some tech companies are apparently putting timers in apps now to warn you if you've been on too long.
And Twenge sees that as a good thing.
Seems like it. The implication is it might nudge people off social media a bit more, encourage more in-person interaction.
In-person, actual face-to-face time, not screen time.
Right. Maybe help people actually keep in touch in the real world.
A move towards better balance, perhaps.
Hopefully. Now, related to phones, what about cameras? Are smartphones killing the traditional camera?
Ah, the big question for photographers. The cameras on phones have gotten incredibly good.
They really have. So, let's see. First, a quiz. When did the actual term smartphone first appear in print? 1995, 2000, or 2005?
Well, a smartphone in print. I feel like the devices we know came later, but the term maybe earlier, 95?
Correct again, 1995. Amazing. Now, Phil Hall from Tech Radar magazine weighed in on this camera question.
And what did he say?
He said sales of cheap, basic compact cameras have basically dropped off a cliff.
Plummeted, basically.
Totally, because people just they choose their phone camera instead.
Makes sense for everyday snaps.
But, he says, the high-end camera market DSLRs, mirrorless cameras that's still alive and kicking.
Ah, so there's a split.
Yeah, it's driven by enthusiasts, people really getting into photography.
Getting into it, like developing a serious interest.
Right, and maybe they hit the limits of their phone camera and want to take the next rung up.
Move to more advanced level.
Exactly. So smartphones reshape the market massively, but dedicated cameras aren't dead yet for those who want more control or quality.
Interesting distinction.
Okay, let's shift one more time to something really fundamental powering all this tech. Electricity.
Ah, the invisible force. We take it completely for granted until the power goes out.
So true. Your sources differentiated between AC,
alternating current,
and DC.
Direct current. And, if you've ever traveled internationally and needed a plug adapter or a converter.
That's often because of AC-DC differences or voltage, right?
Exactly. Speaking of fundamentals, who gets credit for discovering electricity? Edison, Alexander Graham Bell, or Benjamin Franklin?
Ooh, trickier. Edison and Bell did amazing things with it, but discovery. Wasn't that Benjamin Franklin and his kite?
You got it. Ben Franklin and the famous, probably very dangerous kite experiment.
So, back to AC-DC. There's also this thing called frequency, measured in hertz.
Right, how quickly the current alternates back and forth per second.
And that's different in different places. Like the US is 60 hertz, but the UK is 50 hertz.
Correct. Which leads to this idea of synchronous and non-synchronous electrical grids or areas.
And that difference matters for our devices.
It definitely can. That's another reason you might need converters. Plugging a device meant for one frequency into a grid with another frequency might make it malfunction or even get pickled.
Pickled, like damaged.
Yeah, it's an informal way of saying broken or messed up.
Okay, but wait. Why do laptops usually work fine anywhere without a special converter?
Ah, good question. That's often down to their solid-state electronics.
Solid state. What's that?
It refers to electronics using semiconductors without moving parts like old vacuum tubes. These modern power supplies inside laptops are usually designed to automatically handle a range of voltages and frequencies. They convert the current internally.
Clever. Okay, last topic from your sources. Drones.
Those pilotless aircraft we see buzzing around more and more.
Also called UAVs.
Yeah.
Which leads to our final quiz. What does UAV stand for? Unidentified aerial vehicle, unmanned aerial vehicle, or unaided aircraft vehicle?
Unidentified sounds like UFOs. Unaided doesn't quite fit. Unmanned aerial vehicle.
Perfect. Unmanned aerial vehicle it is. Now, drones, they're a mixed bag, aren't they?
Definitely have a dual nature. On one side, there are real concerns.
Like hazards to actual aircraft. There were quite a few near misses reported.
Yeah, safety is a big one. And privacy, too. The surveillance potential.
Surveillance meaning monitoring people or places, often secretly.
Right. With cameras on board, the potential for misuse is there.
But then there's the other side.
The huge potential for positive uses, like amazing aerial footage for films or documentaries.
Aerial footage being video shot from the sky.
Exactly. And Dr. Yoj Patel called them a game changer.
A game changer. Something that totally changes how things are done.
Yes, in both civilian life and the military. Think about inspecting aircraft easily or assessing disaster zones like Fukushima.
Wow. Any other cool examples?
Oh, yeah. UNICEF using them in Malawi to deliver medical supplies to remote areas. Australian lifeguards using them to drop flotation devices to struggling swimmers faster than a boat could get there.
That's brilliant.
And there was even a slightly weird one about a Japanese company wanting to use drones to buzz employees who stay too late to discourage overtime.
Huh. A drone telling you to go home.
Quite the range of applications.
It really is. And with all this use, obviously, rules and regulations are catching up.
They are. There's a big effort to get harmonized regulations.
Harmonized, meaning consistent rules across different regions or countries.
Exactly. To make sure they're used safely and responsibly as the technology becomes more common.
Makes total sense. Wow. Okay, so wrapping this deep dive up, we've covered a lot of ground.
We really have. From digital money and AI assistance
To the web's ecosystem, techno-chauvinism, smartphones, electricity, drones. It's all interconnected.
It shows the sheer scale of digitization, the power, the limits of tech, and how we're constantly interacting with it all.
And hopefully we've managed to pull out some key insights from the sources you shared, connect a few of those dots for you, the listener.
That was the goal, a concise but hopefully insightful overview based directly on that material.
So maybe one final thought to leave you with. Considering all this rapid change, we've talked about AI getting smarter, everything getting connected, new tools like drones emerging. What unforeseen shifts do you think might hit us in the next, say, 10 years as these technologies keep merging and evolving in ways we probably can't even predict right now?
That's definitely something to ponder. How will convergence change things in unexpected ways?
Exactly. Food for thought. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.